Today we are covering compound inequalities and absolute value inequalities. And then you have a practice that covers both. There's quite a bit of information or things that you need to be able to do to be successful at both. Yesterday we covered just regular inequalities. Now these are like a little more complicated. So make sure that we're paying attention and asking questions as we go. We do have a test tomorrow over what we're learning today. I have compiled a ton of videos. And we have also covered this earlier in the semester, both compound inequalities and absolute value inequalities. I'll kind of break it up into two separate videos. That's why it's two separate slides, because they are two separate concepts. So I'll split them up that way. The practice, though, covers regular inequalities, compound inequalities, and absolute value inequalities. So I think it's good practice for the test, because the test doesn't say, hey, answer this compound inequality. It just shows it to you. So you have to know what that means. All right, it's just evens or odds on it. So, you know, star it, which ones that you're doing, just evens or odds. I still have kids that come to me with like the first half done. That's not acceptable. Like, you get harder as you work down the page. So if you're coming to me with just the first half of your worksheet done, you're only getting half the credit because you only did half the evens or half the odds. So I'm going to check it tomorrow while you test. Make sure that you get it done tonight. Tomorrow you are taking a test, and just like last week, if you want to use a note card, you can. Otherwise, you cannot use any other notes. So if you do not want to go and buy your own pack of note cards to use just one index card, then raise your hand and keep it up until I give one to you. Last call. All right, so again, you can fill it out front and back, and that's the only thing you can use tomorrow for the test. No notes otherwise. And also tomorrow is the deadline for late work from the green folders. So if you've been slacking on that, I've been letting you know since last week and giving you a missing assignment report and all of that. Then just know tomorrow is the last day. Questions? All right, so let's start with the compound inequalities. Just like a compound sentence, compound inequalities are two inequalities put together. Or more, so it can be more. So two or more inequalities joined by and or. All right, so and or are the two types of inequalities. You have to know what's the difference between and or. So when I tell you do the evens or odds, what does that mean? All right, we have a lot to get through today, so be on it. Otherwise, we'll never get through it and you'll have less time to practice. So when I tell you to do the evens or odds, what does that mean? One or the other, right? That's why I said or. If I told you to do the evens and the odds, what does that mean? All of them, right? They both have to be true. So that's the same for compound inequalities. If I have the word or, which is the first ones that we're going to look at, only one of them has to be true for it to be a solution. All right, so the or inequalities have a tendency to graph apart. You guys remember what the or inequalities look like when we graph them? They go in opposite directions. Like here's an example. They look like oars, like paddles, right? With the little handles in the middle and the paddles going like toward the water, right? So those should all look like that. The only real difference would be the circles being filled in or not. So yesterday you learned when it's an open circle versus a closed circle, so I expect you to know that for today too. If you have questions about it, then feel free to ask. But let's look at this example. We have x less than or equal to -2 or x greater than 3. So I need to put a circle on what two numbers? -2 and 3. So on the -2, is it open or closed? Good, because it's equal to, right? It has that line underneath. What about on the 3? Is it open or closed? Open. This one's open, this one's closed. For the x less than or equal to -2, I need to put the arrow where the numbers are less than -2. So would that be to the left or to the right? To the left. For x greater than 3, needs to be numbers that are greater than 3. So would that be like 0 and 2, or would it be like 4 and 6? So put the arrow in that direction. Questions about that? And does it look like what we said it would look like? Yes, so that's a good indication that you did it right. If it's an or statement, 99% of the time, they go in opposite directions, like this. Questions? All right, and just be aware, sometimes you also have to work backwards. Sometimes they give you the number line, they don't tell you this part, they make you pick from multiple choice options, or they make you write it from scratch. So if you see that they go in opposite directions, you should already know that it's an or. And then the circles tell you what numbers they're being compared to, and the arrows tell you what sign the direction goes in. So be able to do both. All right, but the ors are pretty easy to solve because they're already separated for you with the word or. Can you see that in all these examples? So they're already separated for you. You just solve them separately and then graph them both on the same line. So like this one, start with the one on the left. How do you get the x by itself? Good, add 4 on each side. On the left, we just have x. On the right, what do we have? -3. Bring down, if they put a word in there, bring down whatever that word is. This time it's or. And then solve the other one. How do you get rid of the 2 that's next to the x here? Divide by 2. Anytime you have to do stuff on each side of the symbol, check to see if you need to flip the sign. Do I need to flip the sign? No, so then just leave it the same. When do you flip the sign? When you multiply or divide a negative on each side of the symbol. So we're not doing that, it's positive, so keep going. What's 12 divided by 2? 6. All right, and once you've solved for x in both and carried down that word, the or, then you box that up. That's part of your answer. A really easy way to trick you on a test would be to put the same exact answer, but replace or with and. All right, don't get the wrong word in there, because they mean 2 different things. All right, now let's graph it. So I need a circle. Let's start with the one on the left. On what number? Open or closed? Good. And it's x less than -3. So should it go left or right? Left. Over here, what's the other number we need to circle on? Open or close? And if it's x greater, we need to point to numbers that are greater, should it go left or right? Right. All right, and guess what? It looks like the OR statement for the OR inequalities. So that's a good indication that we did it right. Questions about that? Yes, no. All right, so then let's do maybe a more challenging one. Let's do number 5 next. So if you're still writing for this one, hurry up. Scrolling down to number 5. All right, so number 5 with the OR statements, they're already separated out for us. So what do I do in number 5? Distribute. So we're solving them separately. For the one on the left, we need to distribute. What do we get from distributing? Good. And then bring down that less than -15. How do you get the x by itself? Good, you're gonna add 3 to each side first. Get rid of what's farther from the x. On the left, we have -6x. On the right, what do we have? Good. Next step would be anything significant about that? Good, the sign needs to flip whenever you multiply or divide a negative on each side. So we divided -6 on each side of the inequality symbol. So that changes to greater than. -12 divided by -6 is 2. Questions there? All right, and I'm not gonna box it up yet because we still have to do the other one. But we have x greater than 2 or, and then we have this other one that we need to solve. I don't have enough room there, so I'm gonna put it over here. What's the first step in getting x by itself? Good. Do I need to flip the sign when I subtract? Right, never. So keep the sign the same. What's 5 minus 1? And then is the x by itself? No. You see completely by itself, no negative. How do I get rid of the negative? Good. Anything significant about that? Good, we divided by a negative again, so we need to flip the sign. So flip it. Now it's less than or equal to what? -4. And I'm going to put that next to the other answer and the or. Questions there? All right, now go ahead and graph it. Take like 30 seconds yourself and graph it. We'll see if you graphed it correctly. Questions? All right, make sure it's a closed circle on the -4, an open one on the 2. Could 0 be an answer for this? No, because it's not greater than 2 or less than or equal to -4, and it's also not covered by that blue line. Could 4 be an answer to this? Yes, because that's where the graph hits, and it's greater than 2. For the ors, only one of them has to be true. Questions? All right, so now let's do some examples with the ands. So on the back side of your note sheet. All right, the ands mean that they both have to be true at the same time. It can't just be for one of them anymore. So they have a tendency to graph together or overlapping. Only where they overlap is a solution. So here's an example. We're going to graph it. Where do my circles need to be? Good. Are they, so on the -6, open or closed? On the 1, good. For x greater than -6, would that be to the left or to the right of this dot? Good. And for these, I would say keep your arrows short. So if you make them like too long, you might just have to erase it. So just keep your arrows short. And then for x less than or equal to 1, left or right? Left. And only where they overlap is your solution. So for this one, it's in the middle. I'm going to kind of clean this up a little bit. In the middle can be our answers. So like 0, -2, -4. Those fit both requirements. They're greater than or equal to -6 and less than or equal to 1. Questions there? All right. So sometimes you see it written where there's and in between them. Sometimes you see the answer option with and in between them. Sometimes though, they write it kind of smushed together. So sometimes they write it where x is in the middle and the other numbers are on the outside. So like -6 and 1. And the symbols need to match like what it's saying in the first one. So like it still needs to face the bigger number in each relationship. So between x and -6, which one's the bigger number? No, between x and -6, which is bigger, x or -6? X. So the opening should still face the x over here. And then between the x and the 1, which number is bigger? The 1. So the opening still needs to face the 1. So be comfortable seeing the answers represented in both ways. You never know how it'll look on your test. Questions about it? All right. So then scrolling down, for solving them, it's nice when they have the word in there, and, because they're already separated out for you. But a lot of the time they just have them like this. So here's what you have to do. You could take your finger and cover up where the symbol is and write down what you see. And then do the same with the other symbol and write down what you see. You basically have 2 separate problems that you're solving. The key here is just knowing how to separate it. So the first one is going to be what I highlighted here. So 2 less than or equal to x plus 4. And then we solve that separately. For the other one, it has the same middle. So for the ands, they still have the same middle, but now it's the other symbol involved. I'm going to put and in here, that might help you. So this and x plus 4 less than 9. You have to know how to separate it. That's the hard part. Questions? Now solve them separately. How do you get the x by itself? What's opposite of adding 4? So do that on each side. What's 2 minus 4? Do I need to flip the sign? No, keep it the same. And x, and these 4's canceled. bring down the word if you put the word in there. So, and then solve the other one. How do you get rid of the 4? Good. Do that on each side. We get x less than what? 5. All right, and then box them up, this whole thing. This is our answer. And if the answers are represented like in the combined form, then this is your answer. Questions there? All right, just take 30 seconds and graph it yourself. So put the circles on the right spot, make sure they go in the correct direction. All right, and if you graphed it correctly, it should look like this. Questions about that? All right, make sure you look at each relationship. So if it says x is the bigger number compared to the -2, then your arrow should go where the numbers are bigger than -2. And then don't forget your open and closed circles. Questions? All right, I'm going to have you try the one below it from start to finish. So practice separating it, solving them separately, and then graphing your solution. So you try number 7. Yes. Yeah. All right, so split it up. They didn't show the splitting up, so I'll write it down in here. All right, but the 2 separate inequalities that you answered would have been -27 less than 7x minus 13, and then 7x minus 13 less than 8. So splitting it up, making sure the middle's the same, and solving them separately. If you did the combined answer like I told you to, this is what it should look like, and then this is what your graph should look like. Questions? All right, so then we're going to move on to the absolute value inequalities. Have questions on these ones? Speak up now.